Hello and welcome to this next tutorial in HTML. Now before we move on to learning CSS, which is how we're going to style our page and move things around on the page, change colours and that kind of a thing, there's one more important part of HTML, one more tag to show you. Now that's the form tag. Sometimes when you make a website you'll want to have a contact page where somebody can enter in their details or a comment, for example, and then send it to you via email. So understanding how to make a form can be very useful indeed. Now the form tag, it's again similar to our other tags. We have an opening tag and a closing tag with form. We've got a couple of other bits and pieces we need to understand here though. The action equals, and then in speech marks, this is the file you're going to open, if you like, once the form has been submitted. Now in this case it's going to be an email form, so I am calling a PHP file, which is what you would use if you wanted to, for example, forward a form to an email address of your choice. The method I've chosen, so it's method equals, I'm using post. Now you've got two different types, get and post. Get is the one by default if you don't define what method you're going to use, but with get you can actually see all the details from the form actually in the address bar of the web browser, so it's not recommended if you want the data to be secure. So if there's any kind of sensitive data at all, it's best to use the post method as I have here. Now the next thing you'll notice here, I've just got the word name. That's what's going to actually appear on the screen next to the input box. So it's just going to say name. That could be first name, whatever you want. In this case, name. Input type we've set to text because they're typing text in, and then we're naming our name field name. That comes in useful later, for example if you want to use some JavaScript. You'll notice two other tags I haven't yet explained here, BR. This will cause a line break. It will force the next thing to go on the line below, so it will separate the items of our form out nicely, which you'll see in a minute. Next I've got an email field. Again, I'm just popping this down to the next line, and this is exactly the same as before, except for now I've called it an email because, again, if I want to do some validation on it to check that the email is formed in the correct way, I can use some JavaScript for that later. Finally, I've done two line breaks, and here's the button. So input type is submit, that will create us a button, and we're just setting its value to submit the form once it's been clicked. Finally, we close the form box. Now let's have a look at that in action. Now here we have it. So this is where we ended up last lesson, but as you can now see, I've got a name field, so I could type in Bob, for example. We could put an email there, bob at, I don't know, bob.com, just something random to test it, and we can click on submit. Now in my case it goes to my email.php file, it tells us the form is received, and I've just put in here a little link so we can go back to the home page. And as you can see, it all works a treat. Now just for completeness, I'm going to show you two more things. If I change this to get, just to show you what happens, I save my file and we run it again in Chrome. Now if this time I put in Bob, and here I put in his email, bob@bob.com, and submit, you can see here quite clearly the username is there and also bob@bob.com. So you can see it's not secure using the get method, so post is preferred. Lastly for this tutorial, just if you want to get this working for yourself, you do need the PHP file. That's quite straightforward to do. Generally with a PHP file you'll have a mixture of HTML and PHP. I haven't put any PHP here because that really is it's another set of tutorials which I'll do later on. But for now, just so you can see it working, you can do something similar to what I've got here. So just in a P tag I've got form received, I've done my HTML tags and my body tags, and I've then just put in the hyperreference back to the index.html, which is our home page here, so that you can click back and you can see that everything's working nicely. Well, have a go, get yourself a form working, and then in the next tutorial we'll move on to learning some CSS so we can start to get our layouts looking much more professional. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.